Hello everyone, welcome to another 12-minute mark. We're going to finish chapter 14 at this very fast, ironic, high drama story of the arrest of Jesus. And we're going to see again another major sandwich of discipleship and witness here, with Peter being showcased. He thought perhaps that he had already betrayed Jesus when he fell asleep and he wasn't supposed to. And then he tries to fight his way out and then runs away. And so then, starting in verse 53, they took Jesus to the high priest. And all the chief priests and elders and teachers of the law, they all came together. Now Peter, he followed them at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself by the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus, so that they could put him to death, but they couldn't find it. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Then someone stood up and gave this testimony. One witness said, "I will destroy this man-made temple and in 3 days build another one, not made by man." But even then their stories did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before and asked Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony they're bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again, the high priest asked him, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?" "I am," said Jesus. "And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." The high priest tore his clothes. "Why do we need any more witnesses? You've heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" They all condemned him as worthy of death. Then some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, "Prophesy." And the guards took him and beat him. While Peter was in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came, and when she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him. You also were with Jesus of Nazareth," she said. But he denied it. "I don't know or understand what you are talking about," he said. And then he went into the entryway. When the servant girl saw him there, she said again to those standing around, "This fellow is one of them." Again he denied it. After a little while, those standing near Peter said, "Surely you're one of them, for you are a Galilean." He began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I don't know this man you're talking about." Immediately the rooster crows the second time. Then Peter remembered the words Jesus had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows twice, you'll disown me 3 times. And he broke down and wept. This section here, we have again the sandwich, the story that starts, and then another story in the middle, and the finish of the first story. Of course, Peter is the subject of the bread pieces of the story here. The other ones fled. We don't know where they are, but Peter is following at a distance. His curiosity, he still loves Jesus even though he's in a weakened state, and so he follows him. And then we get to this so-called trial. There were many checks and balances for a legal trial. They couldn't be held at night. They wouldn't be held over the Passover. Capital cases had to be carried over so many days, etc., etc., etc. Everything is broken. I mean, according to Jewish law, this episode goes out of its way to show just how illegal the trial is that's going on. They're trying to bring all this evidence against him, and they at least want to get together some sort of coherent story against him. But they're going to make it work. They've been trying for 3 years to get him, and now they finally got him. And so they've got to get this trial and all this done before daybreak, because the crowds are going to be looking for him again, and they're scared to death of the crowd. So there's this mad rush to have this middle of the night trial and condemnation of him. And Jesus at first is silent, and then he's asked if he is the Son of the Blessed One, and he says, I am. And then he repeats his prophecy of chapter 13, the Olivet Discourse. You will see me coming again, that he would return on the clouds of heaven. And the high priest, as was accustomed when they hear a great blasphemy, tears his clothes and says, we don't really need any more witnesses. What do y'all want to do? And of course they all condemn him of worthy of death because they're the ones that were behind the plot to begin with. But the middle section here, the trial, what they're doing is, as you notice the whole subtext of it, they're looking for witnesses. Everyone at the trial, even though they don't want to hear the truth, even though we know they're going to condemn Jesus, what they're attempting to do is say, who can speak for this man? Who can speak for his character, his testimony, his words? We need a group of people who know him, who can come and speak on his behalf as witnesses. And all they've gathered, of course, is people who want him crucified. But all the while he's in his most desperate hour, when the chips are down, he's getting ready to be, sentenced to death, and the high priest is saying, "Where are the witnesses who can speak of this man?" They all just fled. It was his apostles. And Peter, the great irony of this section of having the court case stuck in being the meat of the sandwich of Peter is that Peter is the chief witness. He's the one who is missing from the trial. He's the one that is outside in fear. And he's called as a witness, right? He's sitting there, he's just warming himself by the fire. He really doesn't know what to do. The whole night has been a catastrophe for him, and he doesn't know what to do. And then, just while there's a court case going on the inside the building with Jesus, there's also a court case happening outside in the courtyard, and it's this anonymous slave girl who says, "Oh, I know you. You were one of them." She calls him out, and Peter, says, "I don't know or understand what you're talking about." And there's a sense in which not only does Peter deny being one of his followers, Peter denies having any even theoretical knowledge about Jesus. Like, hey, I just fell off the turnip truck. I just got into town. I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's as far as he could go to distance himself from any knowledge of Jesus whatsoever. It's that severe. It's that over-the-top kind of denial. It's not just, well, I wasn't that close to him, or I kind of feel sorry for the guy. It was, I have no knowledge that he even exists, is the language that Peter uses. And then he kind of moves along. He's been made. And so he moves along a little bit, and this little servant girl, follows him and says it again, and they point out again that he's a Galilean. He has a particular dialect, and they can recognize that. And Peter isn't kind of the one who blends into the crowd in general. He's up front. People know who he is. He's one of the three of the inner circle. He, James, and John. And then he even calls down curses on himself, meaning may I be struck by lightning if I've ever met this man, or if I know anything about him. He calls that down. And the irony here is that, he is supposed to be the witness inside, and here he is denying him even on the outside. That just a few moments ago, maybe an hour or so, he was swinging his sword at Roman soldiers, which would have been a death sentence. At this mob, he's ready to die for him. But now, it's important to see that this is a little servant girl. She's a nobody. She has no clout. She has no authority. You don't get any smaller than a servant girl in terms of who has any say or influence. And that he's went from swinging his sword all the way now to being a little servant girl that he can't even admit that he's ever even heard of Jesus. And so we see that once one decides that they cannot fight, he can't fight in the kingdom the way Jesus wants him to fight, and the fight was watch and pray. Watch and pray that you don't fall into temptation. Keep watch, keep praying, and he uses the wrong armaments. He gets his little sword, but he's no good at swinging that either. He can't fight in Christ's kingdom, and he can't fight in man's kingdom, and so he is paralyzed in complete and total fear. And then, of course, we hear the rooster crowing, and the rooster, Jesus hears the rooster, Peter hears it. Perhaps they're close enough to even see each other, Peter and Jesus, at this point. And there's this is now the fulfillment. All the kind of relational drama and relational prophecy between him and his apostles has happened. And now they're going to get things moving very early, as chapter 15 starts, very early in the next morning. We need to get things going so that we can now we have the Jewish authorities who have condemned him to death, but they have to go now through the Roman authorities to actually make this happen. And so that's, of course, their next plan. And so, again, a big lesson for us is just, what are the weapons of his kingdom? And if we don't use the weapons of his kingdom, we'll never be victorious in his kingdom. And that's the hard lesson that Peter is learning now. It's great to look at Peter later on when he learns this, but right now we're in that very dark spot. But we'll see you again next time for chapter 15. God bless you.